The morning sun cast long shadows across the San Carlos Apache reservation as 18-year-old Nayeli Yazzie stood at the edge of the only world she had ever known. Her few possessions, a worn backpack, a faded photograph of her grandmother, and the turquoise necklace that had been passed down through 4 generations of Apache women, were all she had left of a life that had just been stripped away from her. Behind her, the tribal council building stood silent in the early dawn light, its adobe walls holding the echoes of harsh words spoken in judgment just hours before. The decision had been unanimous: banishment. For Nayeli, it felt like a death sentence. "You have brought shame upon our people," Elder Thomas Crow Dog had declared, his weathered face stern with disappointment. "Your actions have violated our most sacred traditions. You are no longer welcome among the Chiricahua Apache." The crime: falling in love with a white man, a young anthropologist named David, who had come to study their culture and had instead stolen her heart. When their secret relationship was discovered, David had fled back to his university, leaving Nayeli to face the consequences alone. The tribal council's decision was swift and merciless. She was to leave the reservation immediately and never return. Now, as she walked toward the highway that would take her away from everything she had ever known, Nayeli felt the weight of centuries of tradition pressing down on her shoulders. She was Apache. Her great-great-grandmother had ridden with Geronimo, her grandmother had survived the government boarding schools, and her mother had fought to preserve their language and customs. But none of that mattered now. She was an outcast. A woman without a tribe, without a home. The October morning was crisp, and Nayeli pulled her grandmother's shawl tighter around her shoulders as she reached the main road. Cars passed by occasionally, their occupants staring curiously at the young Native American woman standing alone with her thumb extended. Hours passed before an elderly Mexican man in a battered pickup truck took pity on her and offered her a ride to Tucson. "Donde vas, mija?" he asked kindly as she climbed into the passenger seat. "I don't know," Nayeli replied honestly. "Anywhere but here." The old man, who introduced himself as Carlos, didn't press for details. He could see the pain in her dark eyes, the way she clutched that photograph like a lifeline. He'd seen that look before, the look of someone whose world had just collapsed. In Tucson, Nayeli found herself truly alone for the first time in her life. The city was overwhelming. Too many people, too much noise, too much concrete and steel were there. Should have been desert and sky. She spent her first night in a homeless shelter, surrounded by strangers who spoke in languages she didn't understand and carried their own stories of loss and displacement. For 3 weeks, she survived on the streets, taking odd jobs when she could find them, sleeping in doorways and under bridges. The money her grandmother had hidden away for emergencies, money that was supposed to help her through college quickly, dwindled as she struggled to buy food and find safe places to sleep. It was desperation that finally drove her to leave Tucson. She'd heard from other homeless individuals about small towns where life might be easier, where a person could disappear and start over. With the last of her money, she bought a bus ticket to a tiny place called Esperanza, Arizona, name that meant hope in Spanish. It seemed like a sign, but hope was in short supply when the bus dropped her off on the main street of Esperanza. At sunset, the town was smaller than she'd expected, just a few blocks of weathered buildings, a gas station, a diner, and not much else. With nowhere to go and no money for a room, Nayeli walked out into the desert as darkness fell, looking for a safe place to spend the night. That's how she found herself curled up in the hollow of an old cottonwood tree, using her backpack as a pillow and her grandmother's shawl as a blanket. The desert night was cold, and she shivered as she listened to the distant howl of coyotes and tried not to think about what would happen to her tomorrow. She must have dozed off, because the next thing she knew, she was being awakened by the sound of a truck engine and a man's voice calling out to her. "Hey there, you okay?" Nayeli's eyes snapped open to see a middle-aged Anglo man standing a respectful distance away. He was tall and lean, with graying hair beneath a worn cowboy hat, and kind eyes that reminded her of her grandfather's. His clothes marked him as a rancher: faded jeans, work boots, and a shirt that had seen many years of hard use. "I'm fine," she said quickly, scrambling to sit up. Every instinct told her to run, but she was too tired, too hungry, and too defeated to move. "Name's Sam Hartwell," the man said, not moving any closer. "This is my land you're sleeping on, but you're welcome to it if you need a place to rest." Nayeli studied his face, looking for signs of deception or ill intent. What she saw was genuine concern and a loneliness that seemed to match her own. "I'm not causing trouble," she said. "I'll move on if you want me to. No need for that. You look like you could use a hot meal and a safe place to clean up. My ranch house is just up the road. No strings attached, just one human being helping another." "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Sam was quiet for a moment, then said, "Because I know what it's like to feel lost. And because my late wife would never forgive me if I left someone in need out here in the cold." There was something in his voice, a sadness that spoke of deep loss, that made Nayeli believe him. Against her better judgment, she found herself nodding. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you." As they walked toward his truck, Sam asked, "You got a name?" "Nayeli," she replied. "It means I love you in Navajo, but I'm Apache." "That's a beautiful name. I'm guessing there's a story behind how you ended up sleeping in a tree on my property." Nayeli was quiet as they drove toward the ranch house, its lights visible in the distance like a beacon in the darkness. Finally, she said, I was banished from my tribe. I have nowhere else to go. Sam glanced at her, surprised by the simple honesty of her statement. Banished? That's pretty serious. What did you do? I fell in love with the wrong person, Nayeli said, her voice barely above a whisper. Someone who wasn't Apache. The tribal council said I brought shame to our people. And where is this person now gone? He left when things got complicated. The pain in her voice was unmistakable. Sam felt a surge of anger toward the man who had abandoned this young woman to face the consequences alone, but he kept his voice calm. I'm sorry. That must have been devastating. It is. I've lost everything, my family, my home, my identity. I don't know who I am anymore if I'm not Apache. They pulled up to the ranch house, a modest but well-maintained structure with a wraparound porch and warm lights glowing in the windows. It looked like the kind of place where families gathered for Sunday dinners and children played in the yard everything Nayeli had lost. Come on, Sam said gently. Let's get some food in you, and then we can figure out what comes next. The kitchen was warm and welcoming, with copper pots hanging from hooks and family photos covering the refrigerator. Sam moved efficiently, preparing a simple meal of soup and sandwiches while Nayeli sat at the kitchen table, overwhelmed by the kindness of this stranger. You live here alone? She asked as he set a bowl of soup in front of her. For the past 3 years, my wife Maria died. Of cancer, we never had children, so it's just been me and the ranch since then. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. What about you? Any family besides the tribe? Nayeli shook her head. My parents died when I was young. My grandmother raised me, but she passed away 2 years ago. She was the last family I had. They ate in comfortable silence, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Sam spoke. I have a proposition for you. If you're interested. Nayeli looked up, wary. I could use help around the ranch. It's nothing too strenuous, feeding animals, collecting eggs, general maintenance. There's a small apartment above the barn that's not being used. You could stay there in exchange for the work, plus a small salary. It would give you time to figure out what you want to do next. Why would you do that for me? Sam considered the question. Because I think we could help each other. You need a safe place to land, and I need the company. This house has been too quiet for too long. Nayeli felt tears prick her eyes. It had been so long since anyone had shown her kindness without expecting something in return. I don't know anything about ranch work, she admitted. I can teach you. The question is, are you willing to learn? For the first time in weeks, Nayeli felt a spark of hope. Yes, she said. I'm willing. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories that will touch your heart. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. The rooster's crow pierced the pre-dawn darkness, and Nayeli woke with a start in the small apartment above the barn. For a moment, she was disoriented, unsure of where she was. Then the events of the previous day came flooding back. The kind rancher, the offer of work and shelter, the first glimmer of hope she'd felt since her banishment. She dressed quickly in the same clothes she'd been wearing for days and made her way down the external staircase. The ranch was already coming to life. She could see lights on in the main house and hear the soft lowing of cattle in the distance. Sam was waiting for her in the kitchen with a steaming cup of coffee and a plate of eggs and bacon. Morning, he said with a smile. Sleep okay? Better than I have in weeks. Nayeli replied honestly. Thank you. Good. Ready for your first day as a ranch hand? Nayeli nodded, though she felt nervous about her ability to do the work. She'd grown up on the reservation, but her experience with animals was limited to the occasional horse and her grandmother's small vegetable garden. We'll start with the chickens, Sam said as they walked toward a well-maintained coop. They're pretty forgiving, and the work is straightforward. The chickens were already awake and clucking expectantly as Sam showed her how to scatter their feed and collect the eggs. Nayeli was surprised by how calming she found the work. There was something soothing about the routine, the simple task of caring for these creatures who depended on her. You're a natural, Sam observed as she gently placed the last egg in the basket. Most city folks are afraid they're going to break them all. I'm not from the city, Nayeli said. I grew up on the reservation. We didn't have much, but my grandmother taught me to respect all living things. Sounds like a wise woman. She used to say that every creature has a purpose, and our job is to help them fulfill it. Nayeli's voice grew soft with memory. I miss her every day. They moved on to the horses next, 6 beautiful animals that Sam used for ranch work and occasional breeding. Nayeli was immediately drawn to a gentle mare named Luna, whose dark coat reminded her of the horses her ancestors had ridden across these same desert lands. She likes you, Sam said, as Luna nuzzled Nayeli's hand. Horses are good judges of character. My great-great-grandmother was known for her way with horses. Maybe it runs in the family. Maybe it does. Would you like to learn to ride? Nayeli's eyes lit up. Could I? We'll start with the basics and see how you do. The morning passed quickly as Sam showed her the various tasks that kept the ranch running, feeding the animals, checking water troughs, maintaining fences. Nayeli threw herself into the work with an enthusiasm that surprised them both. For the first time since her banishment, she felt useful. needed. It was during lunch that Sam broached a subject that had been on his mind. "Can I ask you something about your banishment?" he said carefully. "You don't have to answer if you don't want to." Nayeli stiffened slightly, but nodded. "Was it really just about falling in love with someone who wasn't Apache? That seems harsh, even for a traditional tribal law." Nayeli was quiet for a long moment, staring out the kitchen window at the desert landscape. Finally, she spoke. "It was more complicated than that. David, that was his name. He was an anthropologist studying our culture. I was working as his guide, helping him understand our traditions and customs. We spent a lot of time together, and I fell in love with him." She paused, gathering her courage to continue. "But it wasn't just that he was white. It was that I shared sacred information with him, stories and ceremonies that are supposed to stay within the tribe. When the elders found out, they said I had betrayed our most fundamental trust. They were right." Sam could hear the shame in her voice, the weight of guilt she carried. "Did you know it was wrong at the time?" "Yes and no. I knew the information was sacred, but David made me believe he truly respected our culture, that he wanted to help preserve it through his research. I thought I was doing something good, helping to ensure our traditions wouldn't be lost. And what happened to his research?" Nayeli's laugh was bitter. "He published a paper that completely misrepresented our beliefs. He took our sacred stories and turned them into academic curiosities. When I confronted him about it, he said I was being too sensitive, that I should be grateful he was bringing attention to Apache culture. That's when the relationship ended. That's when I realized I'd been a fool. But by then, it was too late. The tribal council had already learned about what I'd shared with him. They said I was no longer fit to be Apache, that I had chosen the white world over my own people." Sam felt a surge of anger toward the man who had manipulated this young woman's trust and love for his own gain. "I'm sorry, Nayeli. You deserved better than that." "Did I? I betrayed my own people. Maybe the council was right." "No," Sam said firmly. "You made a mistake because you trusted someone you loved. That doesn't make you a traitor, it makes you human." Tears gathered in Nayeli's eyes. "I don't know how to live without being Apache. It's who I am, who I've always been. Without my tribe, without my culture, I'm nothing." "That's not true. Your heritage, your culture, that's part of you, no matter what some council decides. They can banish you from the reservation, but they can't take away who you are inside. How can you understand? You're not Native American." Sam was quiet for a moment. "You're right. I can't fully understand what you're going through, but I know what it's like to lose your identity. When Maria died, I felt like I'd lost myself, too. We'd been together so long that I didn't know who I was without her. It took time to realize that I was still me, changed, maybe, but still the same person at my core." Nayeli wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "How did you find yourself again?" "By helping others, by remembering that my worth wasn't defined by my relationship status or what other people thought of me, and by accepting that sometimes life takes us in directions we never expected." That afternoon, as they worked together repairing a section of fence, Nayeli found herself opening up more about her life on the reservation. She told Sam about her grandmother's stories, about the traditional foods they used to gather in the desert, about the ceremonies that marked the changing seasons. "It sounds beautiful," Sam said as they took a break in the shade of his truck. "It was, but it was also hard sometimes. There's a lot of poverty on the reservation, a lot of problems with alcohol and drugs. Some of the young people leave and never come back. I always thought I'd be different, that I'd stay and help my people. Instead, I became one of the ones who left. But you didn't choose to leave, you were forced out. Does it matter? The result is the same." Sam considered this. Maybe this is just a different path to the same destination. Maybe you'll find a way to help your people from out here. How? I don't know yet, but I have a feeling you'll figure it out. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the desert sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Nayeli felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The ranch was quiet except for the distant lowing of cattle and the soft rustle of wind through the sagebrush. "Sam," she said quietly. "Yeah, thank you. For taking me in. For not judging me. For making me feel human again. Thank you for giving me a reason to get up in the morning again." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. For the first time since her banishment, Nayeli felt like she might actually survive this. She might even find a way to thrive. In the distance, a coyote howled, a sound that had once meant home to her. Now, sitting on this porch with this kind man who had shown her such unexpected compassion, she wondered if maybe home wasn't a place at all. Maybe it was something you created with the people who chose to love you, regardless of where you came from or what mistakes you'd made. If you're enjoying this incredible story of resilience and second chances, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who believes in the power of human kindness. More amazing stories coming your way. 6 months had passed since that cold October night when Sam found Nayeli sleeping in the hollow cottonwood tree, and the rhythm of ranch life had become as natural to her as breathing. The desert had worked its healing magic on her wounded spirit, and the daily routines of caring for the animals had given her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt since her banishment. But it was the relationship with Sam that had truly transformed her. He had become the father she'd never had, the mentor who believed in her potential even when she couldn't see it herself. Under his patient guidance, she'd learned not just ranch work, but valuable life skills: how to manage money, how to plan for the future, how to trust again. On this particular spring morning, Nayeli was in the vegetable garden she'd started behind the barn, tending to the traditional Apache plants she'd managed to grow from seeds her grandmother had saved: squash, beans, and corn. The three sisters that had sustained her people for generations grew alongside tomatoes and peppers that Sam had suggested. "Looking good," Sam said as he approached with 2 cups of coffee. "Your grandmother would be proud." "I hope so," Nayeli replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "I've been thinking about her a lot lately." "Oh, any particular reason?" Nayeli was quiet for a moment, then said, "I got a letter yesterday from my cousin Maria on the reservation." Sam raised an eyebrow. It was the first contact she'd had with anyone from her former life since the banishment. "What did she say?" "There's been an outbreak of diabetes among the children on the reservation. The traditional foods are becoming harder to find, and people are relying more on processed foods from the government commodities program. Maria thought I might know something about traditional nutrition that could help. My grandmother taught me about the medicinal properties of desert plants, about the traditional Apache diet that kept our people healthy for thousands of years, but I don't know if I'm the right person to help. I'm not even supposed to be Apache anymore. Remember?" Sam could hear the pain in her voice, the wound that still hadn't fully healed despite all the progress she'd made. "What does your heart tell you? That I have to try? These are children we're talking about. If I have knowledge that could help them, how can I not share it?" "Then that's your answer." Nayeli looked at him with gratitude. Over the months, Sam had become her sounding board, the person who helped her work through difficult decisions without ever telling her what to do. "But how? I can't go back to the reservation. And even if I could, who would listen to a banished woman?" "Maybe you don't need to go back. Maybe you can help from here." That afternoon, they drove into town to use the library's computer. Nayeli had been taking online courses to earn her GED, but this was different. This was about reconnecting with her heritage in a way that could make a real difference. She spent hours researching traditional Apache nutrition, comparing it with modern dietary science, and documenting the medicinal properties of desert plants. What she found was remarkable. The traditional Apache diet was incredibly well balanced, providing all the nutrients needed for optimal health while preventing many of the chronic diseases that plagued modern Native American communities. "This is incredible," she told Sam as they drove home. "Our ancestors knew things about nutrition that modern science is just beginning to understand. If we could find a way to reintroduce these foods and cooking methods, you could save lives," Sam finished. "But I'm just one person, and I'm not even a recognized member of the tribe anymore. You're one person with knowledge and passion. That's how all great changes start." That evening, Nayeli sat at Sam's kitchen table and wrote a detailed letter to her cousin, outlining everything she'd learned about traditional Apache nutrition and its potential to address the diabetes crisis. She included recipes for traditional foods that could be made with ingredients available on the reservation, as well as information about desert plants that could be cultivated in school gardens. "I don't know if this will help," she said as she sealed the envelope. "It will," Sam said with certainty. "And even if it only helps one child, it will have been worth it." 3 weeks later, another letter arrived from the reservation. This one wasn't from her cousin. It was from Dr. Sarah Bega, the reservation's health director. "She wants to meet with me," Nayeli said, her voice filled with disbelief. "She says my information about traditional nutrition could be the key to addressing the health crisis on the reservation." "That's wonderful news. But she wants me to come to the reservation." "I can't do that, time Banished." Sam was quiet for a moment, then said, "What if you didn't go as a member of the tribe? What if you went as a nutrition consultant?" "What do you mean?" "You've been studying nutrition and traditional foods for months now. You probably know more about Apache dietary traditions than anyone else alive. Maybe it's time to make that knowledge official." Over the next few months, with Sam's encouragement and financial support, Nayeli enrolled in a distance learning program to become a certified nutritionist. She specialized in traditional indigenous foods and their health benefits, writing her thesis on the Apache diet and its potential to address modern health crises. The work was challenging, but Nayeli threw herself into it with the same dedication she'd shown in learning ranch work. She studied late into the night, researching everything from plant biochemistry to cultural anthropology. Sam often found her asleep at the kitchen table, surrounded by textbooks and research papers. "You're pushing yourself too hard," he said one morning as he gently woke her. "I have to," Nayeli replied. "This might be my only chance to make things right, to find a way to help my people without betraying them again." "You never betrayed them in the first place. You made a mistake, but your heart was in the right place." The tribal council didn't see it that way. The tribal council made their decision based on anger and tradition, but times change and people change. Maybe they'll see things differently now. A year after receiving her certification, Nayeli finally felt ready to return to the reservation, not as the banished woman she'd been, but as Dr. Nayeli Yazzie, nutritionist and expert in traditional Apache foods. The meeting with Dr. Beg and the Tribal Health Committee was tense at first. Several of the older members clearly remembered her banishment and were skeptical about accepting help from someone they'd cast out. But as Nayeli presented her research, demonstrating how traditional Apache foods could address the reservation's health crisis, the mood in the room began to shift. "This is remarkable work," Dr. Begay said as Nayeli finished her presentation. "You've documented knowledge that was in danger of being lost forever. My grandmother taught me that knowledge belongs to the people, not to individuals." Nayeli replied, "I want to share everything I've learned." Elder Thomas Crow Dog, the same man who had pronounced her banishment 2 years earlier, spoke up from the back of the room. "You have changed Nayeli Yazi." The young woman who left here was confused and angry. "The woman who stands before us now has found her purpose. I've learned that being Apache isn't about where you live or what some council decides," Nayeli said quietly. "It's about carrying our traditions forward and using them to help our people thrive." The elder nodded slowly. "Perhaps it is time for the council to reconsider its decision." 6 months later, Nayeli stood once again before the tribal council, but this time, instead of facing banishment, she was being welcomed home. Her nutrition program had already begun showing results. Diabetes rates among reservation children were dropping, and traditional food gardens were flourishing in schools and community centers. "The council has voted unanimously to lift your banishment," Elder Crow Dog announced. "You are welcome to return to the San Carlos Apache Reservation as a full member of the tribe." Nayeli felt tears streaming down her face, but they were tears of joy, not sorrow. She had found her way home not just to the reservation, but to herself. After the ceremony, she drove back to the ranch where Sam was waiting on the porch, a proud smile on his weathered face. "So," he said as she climbed the porch steps, "I guess this means you'll be leaving me for good." "Actually," Nayeli said, settling into the rocking chair beside him, "I was hoping you might consider a partnership." "What kind of partnership?" "The tribe wants to expand the nutrition program too. Other reservations throughout the Southwest, they've offered me the position of director, but I'd need a base of operations. Somewhere I could grow traditional foods and conduct research." Sam's eyes twinkled with understanding. "And you think a certain ranch in Arizona might fit the bill?" "Only if the owner is interested in becoming a partner in the most important work of my life." Sam reached over and squeezed her hand. "I can't think of anything I'd rather do." As the sun set over the desert that had become their shared home, Nayeli reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had been banished by her own people, cast out and left to wander in exile. But in losing everything, she had found something even more valuable: her true purpose. The Apache girl who had once been told she was no longer fit to be part of her tribe had become the bridge between traditional wisdom and modern healing. And the lonely rancher who had offered her shelter had become the father who helped her find her way back to herself together. They would continue the work of preserving and sharing the ancient knowledge that could heal not just bodies but communities. It wasn't the life either of them had planned, but it was the life they had chosen and that made all the difference. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of exile, redemption, and finding home in the most unexpected places. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and share it with others who believe in second chances. Don't forget to hit that notification bell for more inspiring true stories. What did you think of Nayeli's journey? Let us know in the comments below. This story is a work of fiction inspired by real events and the resilience of the human spirit. While the characters in specific events are fictional, they represent the very real experiences of those who have found strength in exile and purpose in helping others.